It was a Saturday morning, and 11-year-old Liam had set out on his usual adventure into the dense woods that bordered his house. He had explored the forest many times before, but today was different. The early spring rain had left the ground soft and mushy, making the path slippery and treacherous. But Liam didn't mind, he loved the thrill of the challenge. Armed with his backpack, a snack, and a small pocket knife, he wandered deeper into the woods than he had ever dared to go. As the minutes ticked by, Liam noticed that the forest felt quieter than usual. The chirping of birds seemed distant, and the rustling of leaves in the wind sounded muffled. He pushed forward, excited by the mystery of what lay ahead. He wasn't too far from the old creek he often visited, but he felt like he was entering new territory, unexplored land, where no one had set foot before. A little over an hour had passed when he arrived at a small clearing, the center of which was dominated by a large patch of mud. The ground had been soaked by the recent rains, and the once solid earth had turned into a quagmire. Liam, not thinking much of it, took a few steps toward the edge of the muddy patch. He had just found a few old tree branches scattered nearby when his foot sank into the mud. At first, he didn't panic. It was just a bit of muck, right? But as he tried to lift his foot, he realized with a sinking feeling that the mud had swallowed his shoe. He pulled harder, but the more he struggled, the deeper he seemed to sink. His foot was stuck up to the ankle now, and it was as if the earth itself was holding him captive. He bent down, grabbed the mud-covered branch, and tried to pull himself free, but it was no use. The harder he pulled, the deeper his foot sank, and soon the other foot was in the mud too. Liam's heart began to race. He tugged with all his might, but the more he fought, the more trapped he felt. He looked around in panic, realizing how deep the forest seemed now, how isolated he was. His house was far behind him, hidden by the thick trees, and there was no one else around to help. He let out a few nervous shouts, but the forest only swallowed his cries. Minutes turned into half an hour. Liam could feel the cold, wet earth creeping up around his calves, the mud clinging stubbornly to his shoes and legs. His attempts to free himself were becoming more frantic. He twisted and turned his body, trying to dislodge his feet, but it felt like the mud was pulling him in even more. He was stuck. As time passed, the feeling of dread started to overtake him. He couldn't recall how long he had been out there now, but it seemed like forever. He shivered slightly as a cool breeze brushed through the trees. He realized he hadn't eaten his snack, hadn't even thought to drink from his water bottle. He had no way of knowing how long he would be stuck in this patch of mud. Liam's mind raced. Should he scream for help? What if no one heard him? What if his parents didn't even know where he had gone? He hadn't told anyone where he was headed today. The woods were his secret place. He could see the silhouette of the tree branches swaying in the wind above him, but his sight was limited by the muck that surrounded him. His heart pounded in his chest. He needed to calm down. Taking a deep breath, he closed his eyes for a moment, gathering his thoughts. The sun was still up, but it was sinking slowly behind the thick canopy of leaves, casting long shadows over the ground. The clearing was now more eerie than before, the stillness of the forest pressing in on him like a weight. Liam recalled the survival tips he had read about: stay calm, assess the situation, and think rationally. He was stuck, yes, but he wasn't in any immediate danger. The mud was thick, but it wasn't rising any higher. It was just very, very sticky. The biggest risk was the growing panic that threatened to overwhelm him. Slowly, he began to consider his options. He tried shifting his weight and gently rocking his body back and forth, as if he were trying to free a trapped object. He worked his muscles in a slow, methodical rhythm, hoping that with each movement, he could create enough space to pull his legs free. Time dragged on. The sun was beginning to dip lower in the sky now, casting a warm orange hue over the forest floor. The sounds of the birds had long since faded, replaced by the occasional rustling of leaves in the wind. Liam's thoughts drifted to his family, his mom and dad, who would be worried by now. His little sister, Emma, would be asking where he was. His mind wandered back to the days when he used to run around the woods with his friends, laughing and exploring. He wished he had waited until someone else could join him on this adventure. Then, just as his muscles began to ache with the constant effort of trying to free himself, something changed. A tiny shift in the mud, almost imperceptible, made Liam realize that with every twist and turn, he was gaining a little ground. The mud seemed to give way slightly, just enough for him to inch his feet a bit further. He worked with renewed determination, his hands gripping the branches more tightly, his legs straining against the heavy earth. Another 10 minutes passed before he felt it, a sudden release. His left foot slipped free with a soft pop, and he stumbled backward, nearly losing his balance. He took a deep breath, looked at his now muddy feet, and turned his focus to his right leg. Slowly, carefully, he repeated the process, twisting and shifting his weight until finally his right foot slipped free as well. Liam stood up, his legs trembling beneath him. He was free, covered in mud from head to toe, but free. His breath was ragged, and his heart still raced, but he had made it. He didn't even stop to consider how exhausted he was. Instead, he started to make his way toward the edge of the forest. The path back home seemed a little less daunting now. The sky was dimming as the sun finally dipped below the horizon, and the first stars began to appear. Liam moved carefully, cautious of the slippery ground, and though the air was cool, his body was still warm from the effort. By the time he reached the edge of the forest, his clothes were caked in mud, and his hair was plastered to his forehead. But the relief that flooded through him as he saw his house in the distance was overwhelming. He had made it through, and he was going to be okay. As he trudged up the driveway, he couldn't help but laugh a little. Maybe next time, he'd be a bit more careful about where he stepped in the forest. And maybe, just maybe, he wouldn't go so far alone. But for now, the warmth of home was enough.